Good afternoon, boys and girls, and welcome to writing. We're going to first start off with our learning target for today. I can understand how varied sentences and sensory details enhance meaning. So, as you can see with the title of our page right here, we are learning about elaborative detail. Now, elaborative detail is basically going in more depth of providing the reader a mental picture of what it is that the writer is trying to tell us and visualize through the story. So, a really quick thing about what we are going to be doing. This video is basically going to show you how you're going to do something similar when you guys are doing your independent work and when you are doing your formative, your quiz, okay? So make sure you're paying very close attention to how you do this page because it's going to be the exact same thing for the collaborative work and the exact same thing for the quiz, okay? So obviously they're numbered, so make sure you are watching how I am thinking and what I am writing, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Always start with reading the directions. Read this descriptive segment below. The author uses elaborative detail to describe the story critical character. So this part we are focusing on a character, okay? Because we've been talking about critical characters, setting, and objects. So for this one, it is specific to character. The sensory information allows the reader to see, hear, and experience this character right along with the main character. So what that means is that this author that wrote this part from a book really makes sure they uses word choice that gives us a visual of what we can possibly see in our own heads, hear in our own heads, and experience the situation with the character as well. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read this couple of paragraphs. It's from a passage from the book Because of Winn-Dixie. Have any of you ever read this book before? Some of you might and some of you might not have. So it is really important to really pay attention to the types of elaborative detail to describe the situation. Here we go. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly. And he looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out, and he was wagging his tail. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. I had never before in my life seen a dog smile, but that is what he did. He pulled back his lips and showed me all his teeth. Once we were safe outside, I checked him over real careful, and he didn't look that good. He was big, but skinny. You could see his ribs, and there were bald patches all over him, places where he didn't have any fur at all. Mostly he looked like a big piece of old brown carpet that had been left out in the rain. Okay, and then this little part right here, asking questions, okay? So the directions right here tell us, actually I'm going to stop. So boys and girls, when I read this, could you visualize this dog? With all the different details, were you able to visually see what the dog looked like? What did the dog feel like? What could you smell? Things like that. When you're reading, you need to ask yourselves questions whether or not you are able to visualize this in your own head. If you're not, then that is a challenge that you're going to have to start making from now on so that you can have a better connection to books. Because when you make connections with books, reading becomes easier and more enjoyable the older you get. So now with that being in place, let's go to right here. Read the passage above, which we did, and think about the kinds of detail-generating questions the author would have to ask himself or herself in order to generate this type of detail. On the lines below, write your questions. So boys and girls, I'm going to model this for you. And with that being said, you guys are going to have to be doing the exact same thing when you're doing your practice one and then when you're doing your quiz. The questions that you write need to make sense to the story that you read. If there is no connection, then you're not going to get a good grade. So you need to make sure that whatever questions you have connect with the story from up here. Now, I am reflecting. So I'm thinking out loud and I'm reflecting. So back in this story, we talked about a dog. Okay, so we talked about a specific dog and questions that I would have that would answer. So I'm thinking of questions that have been answered in these two paragraphs. So what did the dog look like? Okay. All right, so what did the dog look like? And this question is answered mainly in the second paragraph, right here. He was big but skinny. You could see his ribs. This sentence right here gives a very powerful visual of what this dog looked like. A big dog, but skinny. You can see the dog's ribs. That really paints a picture in your head. So this question ties in with that sentence. Let's keep going. And there were bald patches all over him. This still is connected with what he looks like. Notice that not one sentence completely explains. You can't answer this question in one sentence. It's mainly like several sentences. So really pay attention to that, boys and girls. One sentence will not explain everything. Sometimes you have to do more. And there were bald patches all over him, places where he didn't have any fur at all. That really paints a picture. And it makes me sad because dogs that look like this have been neglected. And what that means is they're not taken care of and they're left alone with no one to help them. So it paints a big picture of how this story was written. Okay, so let's think of another question. All right, so another question is, which kind of goes with this. What kind of dog was in this story? So what kind of dog? Well, we know he is a big dog, but kind of ugly. So using my own background knowledge, big ugly dogs kind of remind me of those dogs that kind of look like mops. I can't pinpoint the exact name of that type of dog, but that's the kind of dog that I can think of, where they are huge. They're big dogs, but they are not that cute in my opinion. Everyone's got their own opinion, but that's just me. So that's the kind of dog that I'm visualizing. So, that kind of answers this question. Another question would be, what is the dog's personality like? All right, so what is the dog's personality? What is the dog's personality? Remember, we always start with capitalization and end in a punctuation. Since it's a question mark. So what is the dog's personality? That goes back to the first paragraph, where it's right here. And he looked like he was having a good time. All right, so I'm going to go bracket right here. He looked like he was having a good time. But it doesn't just stop there. What details show us, the reader, that this dog was having a good time? That would be the second sentence right here. His tongue was hanging out, and he was wagging his tail. Well, boys and girls, we know, or we should know, if you have a pet dog of your own, that when dogs wag their tails, they're happy. They are very happy and they're very excited. So that right there tells us the dog's personality. The dog is a happy dog, even though it was been neglected. And here's another proof. Here's another sentence that kind of proves this question. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. The dog smiled. Big clue right there that kind of helps answer this question. So, boys and girls, we're working backwards from what the writer has given us. So the writer had to think of these types of questions to help give us these two paragraphs alone. Now again, these two paragraphs give us so much imagery, and we haven't even read the entire book yet because of Winn-Dixie. So that is the book that these two paragraphs came out of. Now I can't imagine what the rest of this book is like, because I bet there is a lot of imagery that kind of helps you visualize the story of this dog. Okay, so boys and girls, this is what you are doing, okay? Making sure when you are off on your own and when you are with the doing the formative, make sure you underline sentences, bracket sentences, whichever you prefer, and ask yourself questions based off of what is from here, okay? So this one was from critical character. We were focusing on what described the character. Now, you might get one where it's talking about the setting. Remember, the setting is where the story is taking place. Or you might get one where it's talking about a specific object, like a pen. The story might be about a pen, or it could be about a piece of paper, or a tennis ball. It could be anything like that, okay? So, down here though, when it says challenge, you do not have to do the challenge part when you are off on your own. However, the challenge part for the quiz is extra credit. Now, if you do the challenge part on your quiz, I will give you, and if you complete all of it, then I will give you 10 extra credit points, and those points will go towards your lowest score in your writing grades, okay? So, you do not have to do this for the quiz, but if you want to, you can and get extra credit so that you can get your grade up higher. All right, boys and girls, well, that is all that I have for today's writing. It has been a pleasure teaching you, and I will see you next time. Bye!